Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Star Wars channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps your own galaxy has been noisy today, filled with movement and thought. But here, among the stars, there is only calm. Let your breathing slow, your mind drift like a ship through hyperspace. Because tonight, we journey to the dawn of light itself, to the beginning of the Jedi Order, and the quiet rhythm of the Force that binds all things. Now close your eyes, and may the stars guide us through the ancient serenity of the Jedi. 1. Before the Order. Long before sabers hummed or temples shone with golden light, the Force simply was. It flowed through the breath of every living being, unseen, unspoken, infinite. Across distant worlds, small groups began to feel its presence. Farmers who sensed the change of seasons before it came. Wanderers who dreamed of stars they'd never seen. They didn't call it the Force yet. They called it life, energy, spirit. In those quiet beginnings, there were no wars or codes, only awareness. And in the stillness of that awareness, something sacred stirred, a calling, faint but clear, like the first whisper of a galaxy awakening. And somewhere in that silence, the Jedi were waiting to be born. 2. The first seekers. They were travelers without maps, drawn to the same unseen current. Some came from oceans, others from frozen moons, but all felt the same gentle pull in their hearts. They followed visions through storms and starlight until they met on unknown worlds. There they shared their dreams of harmony, of peace, of understanding the breath that moved through all living things. They did not build temples. They built trust. They did not seek power. They sought presence. Together, they meditated beneath the same stars, learning to listen to the universe instead of trying to shape it. And in their gathering, the First Order began to take form, not in rule or ritual, but in quiet unity. 3. The Prime Jedi legends speak of one among them, the Prime Jedi, a being who stood at the center of the first circle on Ahch-To, where land met sea and silence met song. Neither master nor ruler, but balance itself. They taught that light and dark were not enemies, but reflections, that within every shadow was the seed of light, and within every light, the calm acceptance of shadow. From their meditation, the first symbol was carved into stone, a circle divided, yet whole. That ancient mark, still seen on Ahch-To, reminds us that the Force is not to be conquered, but to be known. And as the waves whispered against the cliffs, the Prime Jedi smiled, for the galaxy had found its first peace. 4. Temple of the First Light. On the ancient world of Ahch-To, cliffs rose from the ocean like the spines of sleeping giants. There, upon a plateau touched by dawn, the first Jedi built not a fortress, but a sanctuary. The Temple of the First Light was no monument to power. It was a circle of stone, open to wind and wave. Within it, the earliest Jedi gathered to watch the sunrise, feeling the Force ripple through the sea below. They meditated as birds soared above, their chants blending with the tide. The temple became a place of balance, where each breath echoed eternity and silence spoke louder than words. Even now, those ruins remember peace. And in that peace, the Force still hums softly, waiting to be heard. 5. The birth of the Code. Before there were scrolls or councils, there was understanding, gentle and wordless. But as the Order grew, the Jedi began to shape their feelings into words, so that others might follow the same calm. The first version of the Jedi Code was not carved or commanded. It was whispered like a mantra. There is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. There is no chaos. There is harmony. There is no death. There is the Force. Each line flowed like a tide between stars, a reminder that peace was not the absence of feeling, but the balance within it. The code was a melody of calm in a galaxy that would one day know storms. And even in silence, its rhythm still breathes. 6. Ach, tows oceans. The waves of Ach-Tu are said to hold the memory of the Force itself. Each tide, each foam-tipped crest, moves to the rhythm of creation and return. When the first Jedi meditated by those waters, they saw reflections of the cosmos, not in the stars above, but in the ripples beneath their feet. They learned that the Force flows as the sea does, endless, patient, forgiving. Every drop returns to the whole. Every current finds its way home. It was there, amid the whisper of waves and the cries of seabirds, that the Jedi learned their most sacred truth, that peace, like water, is strongest when it yields. And as night fell over the ocean, the stars seemed to mirror the waves, a galaxy resting in harmony. 7. The Force as breath. To the first Jedi, the Force was not a power to wield, but a rhythm to join. They called it the Great Breath, the invisible tide between life and silence. When they meditated, they would inhale to feel the galaxy awaken, and exhale to feel it rest once more. In that simple cycle, they discovered the truth of all things, that the Force was not separate from them. It was them. Every thought, every heartbeat, every whisper of wind was part of a greater breathing cosmos. To live was to move in harmony with it. To resist was to suffer. And so they learned to let go, to flow, to simply be. Even now, every Jedi breathes that ancient rhythm. Peace in, fear out, always returning to calm. 8. Light and shadow. When the first Jedi looked within themselves, they saw something beautiful and terrifying. There was light, radiant and kind, but also shadow, deep and quiet. Some feared this darkness and tried to cast it away. But the wisest among them understood that the Force was not divided, only misunderstood. The dark was not evil. It was potential unbalanced, emotion uncentered. They meditated on cliffsides at twilight, when sun and night met as equals, and realized that harmony is born between opposites, not apart from them. Thus, the earliest teaching was written in the sky itself, that the Force is balance, not battle. And in that balance, the Jedi found serenity that could outlast any storm. 9. The gathering of stars. In time, the first Jedi were drawn together across the galaxy. Guided by dreams and visions, they journeyed through nebulae and star fields, meeting on a world illuminated by twin moons. There, under the silver glow, they shared their stories and joined their knowledge. Each voice a note in a vast, celestial harmony. From that gathering was born the first council, not of power, but of peace. They promised to protect life, to study the mysteries of the Force, and to teach others that peace begins within. No banners were raised, no oaths shouted, only the soft hum of the Force around them, a chorus of stars blessing their vow. And as dawn touched their faces, the Jedi Order truly began. 10. Harmony restored. With the first council formed beneath twin moons, a great stillness settled across the stars. No longer were the seekers scattered or uncertain. They had become one voice, one breath within the Force. They traveled from world to world, not as conquerors, but as healers, restoring balance where greed, fear, and sorrow had taken root. planets scarred by storms found peace beneath their meditation. Rulers paused their wars after hearing a Jedi's gentle truth. And in those early centuries, harmony was not a dream. It was a way of living. The galaxy began to hum in quiet unity, each life a note in the Force's endless song. And from that stillness, the light of the Jedi began to shine like a sunrise that would last millennia. 11. Knights of Balance. They called themselves knights, though few ever raised a blade. Their strength came not from combat, but from clarity. Each knight trained to see through illusion, to look upon anger, fear, or hate, and respond with patience instead of fury. They wore robes of simple cloth and carried sabers not for glory, but as symbols of balance, tools of focus, never of domination. When conflicts arose, these Jedi did not march to command armies. They sat among the people, listening until peace found its way forward. To walk among them was to feel a deep serenity, a quiet confidence that the Force was alive in every gesture, every silence. And as the galaxy grew to trust these luminous beings, the Jedi became not legends of battle, but stewards of harmony. 12. The holocrons awaken. As the Order grew, wisdom began to fill the air like starlight. The Jedi sought ways to preserve their teachings beyond parchment and memory. So they shaped crystals with the Force itself, creating luminous vessels of thought and sound, the first holocrons. Each holocron pulsed with a living voice, a master's calm words held in the glow of Kyber. They were not machines, but companions, windows to ages past, whispering lessons of compassion and control. In times of doubt, young Jedi would sit before them, listening to ancient voices that echoed through generations. And as those crystals hummed softly in the archives of the temple, it was said that even in darkness, the light of knowledge would never fade. 13. Pilgrims of the Force. When the early Order found harmony within themselves, they turned their gaze outward, toward the stars, not to conquer, but to connect. The Jedi became pilgrims of peace, journeying to distant worlds where suffering clouded the Force. They traveled aboard gentle vessels guided by instinct rather than maps, allowing the Force to steer their paths like a cosmic current. On each world, they listened first. They learned the songs of local winds, the stories of old tribes, the fears that lingered in the night. And through presence alone, they began to heal. Their lightsabers remained unlit, for the greatest power they carried was empathy. Wherever they walked, silence replaced conflict, and the people whispered of the light walkers who calmed even the storms. 14. Lightsabers born. In time, the Jedi learned that their meditation and their missions required a focus, a way to channel the living Force into something tangible. So they crafted weapons unlike any other, not of metal, but of harmony. At the heart of each was a crystal, Kyber, alive with resonance. When attuned to a Jedi's spirit, it sang softly, producing a beam of light that could cut through steel, yet hum with serenity. To ignite a lightsaber was never an act of war. It was a moment of connection, the joining of soul and crystal. Each saber became a reflection of its wielder, color, tone, and movement shaped by their presence in the Force. In the glow of those first blades, peace found its symbol, a weapon of light, made to defend life, not to end it. And so, the galaxy began to recognize the Jedi, not by face, but by that luminous hum. 15. Kyber's Song. To the untrained ear, Kyber crystals were silent stones, but to the Jedi, they sang, a soft, living note that echoed through the Force. Each crystal, was unique, attuned to the currents of life that flowed through the galaxy. When a young Jedi found their crystal, it was said the stone found them as well. The moment of connection was sacred, the hum of unity between living being and luminous core. Crystals from Elam, Jeddah, and countless hidden worlds pulsed with colors unseen by ordinary eyes: green for peace, blue for clarity, yellow for wisdom. When held to the light, they seemed to breathe. And in that breath, the Jedi heard the promise of the Force itself, that every spark of light, no matter how small, sings its own eternal melody. 16. The Great Convocation. As the Jedi spread across the galaxy, the time came to gather once more. Messengers traveled through hyperspace, carrying a single, serene message: come home to the light. And so they came. Hundreds of Jedi from deserts and forests, moons and oceans, convening upon a world bathed in pale sunlight. There, beneath a sky of swirling nebulae, they meditated as one. It was not a council of politics, but of purpose. They shared what they had learned from the stars: compassion from strangers, patience from nature, humility from loss. The air itself shimmered with harmony as thousands of minds joined through the Force. When the gathering ended, each Jedi carried a renewed calm, a shared understanding that the light must forever flow outward. From that day, the Great Convocation was remembered as the galaxy's first chorus of peace. 17. Temple on Coruscant. In time, the Jedi were asked to dwell among the galactic heart, to stand as symbols of balance amid the roar of civilization. Upon the world of Coruscant, they built their grand temple, a vast sanctuary rising above the city of endless light. Though towers gleamed and ships soared below, the temple was quiet. Its halls bathed in soft illumination, its walls carved with ancient sigils of unity. At its center stood the spire of meditation, where masters could gaze beyond the skyline and sense the pulse of billions of lives below. To the people of Coruscant, the temple became a beacon of hope, a silent promise that peace still watched over them. And at night, when the city dimmed, the temple's highest light shimmered like a star brought down to rest upon the world. 18. Younglings and masters. Every dawn in the temple, the sound of laughter would drift through marble corridors. They were the younglings, children from distant worlds, brought to learn the ways of stillness and care. Guided by patient masters, they studied not only the Force, but kindness, awareness, and truth. Their lessons began with breathing and ended with understanding. To feel the living force around them, to know when to act and when to wait. Each master took joy in watching these little sparks grow into calm flames of wisdom. The bond between them was sacred, like that of parent and child, teacher and student intertwined through generations. And though the galaxy beyond was vast and restless, within those halls there was laughter, light, and the quiet certainty that the future of peace was safe. 19. The Jedi Trials. When a Padawan was ready to step beyond learning and into living the code, they faced the Jedi Trials, not as punishment, but as reflection. There were 5, each a mirror for the soul: skill, courage, flesh, spirit, and insight. Some faced them within temples, others in the field, but all discovered that the truest test was within their own heart. The trial of courage taught trust in the Force. The trial of spirit revealed fear and asked for understanding. No duel or victory defined success, only stillness in the face of chaos. For the Jedi knew that mastery was not power over others, but peace within oneself. And when a Padawan completed the trials, the galaxy itself seemed to sigh, as if another light had found perfect balance in the endless night. 20. Voices of the Force. To meditate deeply was to listen, not with ears, but with essence. The Jedi learned that the Force could speak in ways beyond language. A soft pull, a shimmer of feeling, a quiet certainty in the moment. Some heard it in water, some in stars, some in the spaces between heartbeats. The wisest among them, like Master Yoda centuries later, understood that to hear the Force was to surrender the need to speak. It was said that when a Jedi sat in perfect silence, they could hear the galaxy breathing. Each life, each death, a note in the eternal song. The Force never shouted, it only whispered, softly and patiently, waiting for hearts calm enough to listen. And so, the Jedi became keepers of that silence, carrying it with them wherever peace was needed. 21. Peacekeepers, not warriors. Though the galaxy often saw the Jedi with sabers at their sides, their purpose was never to fight, only to preserve balance. Their robes were plain, their lives humble, for they believed violence clouded the clarity of the Force. When conflict arose, the Jedi sought to understand both sides, believing that compassion could mend what anger broke. To them, victory meant a dialogue restored, a heart soothed, a storm calmed. In rare moments when battle could not be avoided, they fought not with fury, but with sorrow, each strike guided by necessity, never pride. When peace returned, they laid their sabers down with reverence, as if returning the light to the Force itself. For even in motion, the Jedi's true weapon was serenity. 22. Council of 12. At the heart of the Jedi Temple stood the High Council Chamber, a serene circle of seats, each facing inward, symbolizing equality and shared truth. 12 masters held vigil there, their voices balanced like planets in orbit. When one spoke, the others listened, not to debate, but to understand. Each member represented a facet of the Force: compassion, wisdom, clarity, patience. No decision was made through power, but through harmony. In moments of uncertainty, they meditated together, letting the Force itself guide their course. To witness the council in session was to see peace embodied, a gathering of souls so calm that even the city's endless noise seemed to fade beyond their walls. And in that stillness, the galaxy's destiny was often decided, gently, quietly, in light. 23. Meditations in the Hall of Balance. Deep within the temple, below the chambers of debate and instruction, lay the Hall of Balance, a sacred space where all Jedi came to remember stillness. Here, light streamed through narrow skylights, painting soft patterns across the polished floor. Crystals embedded in the walls hummed faintly, their resonance matching the rhythm of the meditator's breath. Masters and younglings alike would sit for hours in silence, listening to the ebb and flow of the Force as if it were a tide. Some said that if one listened long enough, they could hear the voices of the Prime Jedi echo through time. The hall was not a place for answers, but for acceptance. When a Jedi's mind became tangled with doubt or fear, they would return here to breathe, to release, to find themselves once more in the great stillness. 24. The art of the lightsaber. To wield a lightsaber was to hold a living extension of the Force. Every movement, every strike, was a meditation in motion. The Jedi treated combat not as destruction, but as a dance of focus, fluid and deliberate. Each stance flowed into the next, a reflection of balance between thought and instinct. Masters often trained beneath the glow of dawn, their sabers sweeping through mist like ribbons of starlight. When two blades met, the sound was not violent. It was music, sharp and pure, a dialogue between harmony and control. The Jedi taught that to master the saber was not to dominate an opponent, but to master one's own fear. And when the lesson was complete, the hum of the blade would fade into silence, the same silence from which peace is born. 25. Forms of serenity. To the Jedi, a lightsaber form was more than a fighting style. It was a meditation, a reflection of the wielder's spirit. There were 7 main forms, each born of experience, philosophy, and inner truth. Soresu, the form of defense, flowed like a stream, avoiding every stone. Ataru leapt like wind through trees, celebrating life's energy. Makashi moved with the grace of elegance and restraint, while Neiman balanced all things, a mirror of harmony itself. Even the aggressive forms, like Huyo, were practiced not in rage, but in awareness, a way to understand and transform one's own shadow. To master a form was to know oneself completely. And when the practice ended, the Jedi bowed, letting the hum of the saber fade back into silence, their hearts as calm as the force that guided every motion. 26. The Temple Gardens. Amid marble halls and echoing corridors, there bloomed an oasis, the Temple Gardens. They were vast and fragrant, filled with blossoms from 1,000 worlds. Streams ran through the courtyards, their gentle trickle mingling with a low hum of meditation. It was here that masters came to reflect, and younglings learned their first lessons in patience. Each plant, carefully tended, symbolized a living connection to the Force. From the luminous flowers of Naboo to the crystal leaf trees of Ilum, the garden was both teacher and temple. It reminded the Jedi that even in the center of civilization, nature remained the truest expression of harmony. Many great insights were found not in battle or study, but in the quiet act of watering a seed. For in nurturing life, the Jedi learned again the essence of peace. 27. The Jedi Archives. Beneath the temple's shining towers, hidden within golden chambers, rested the Jedi Archives, a treasure of knowledge stretching back millennia. Rows upon rows of holocrons glowed softly in the dim light, each holding the voice of a long-departed master. Within these walls, every world, every culture, every lesson of the Force was preserved. Archivists moved like shadows, calm and reverent, their footsteps echoing between marble columns. Here, silence was sacred. Even the youngest Padawan could feel the presence of history in the air, as if the temple itself remembered every whisper of wisdom ever spoken. The archives were not a monument to power, but to patience, for learning, like the Force, flowed endlessly. And when night fell, the crystals within glowed like stars, a quiet constellation of knowledge shining at the heart of the galaxy. 28. Pilgrimages of the mind. Not all journeys required ships or stars. For many Jedi, the greatest voyage was taken within. Through deep meditation, they practiced pilgrimages of the mind, traveling not through hyperspace, but through memory, intuition, and the living Force itself. A master could close their eyes on Coruscant and feel the wind across distant oceans, hear the hum of life on worlds they had never seen. Some wandered into the past, reliving moments of truth and loss. Others glimpsed the future, like faint ripples, yet to reach the shore. These journeys taught them humility, for the Force was vast and unknowable, and they were only travelers within it. When their meditations ended, the Jedi returned to waking life with gentler eyes, carrying fragments of the galaxy's heartbeat within their own. 29. Voices of the Force Choir. On certain nights in the temple, when the twin moons of Coruscant aligned, the Jedi gathered for a ritual few outsiders ever witnessed, the Choir of the Force. Hundreds of voices filled the grand atrium, not with words, but with tones resonating in harmony with the kyber crystals that lined the chamber. Each note carried intention, peace, compassion, serenity, vibrating through stone, through air, through every being who listened. It was said that during these moments, the temple itself seemed to breathe, its walls alive with the pulse of the Force. Younglings would listen in awe, hearts still and eyes closed, as the melody rose and fell like the tides of creation. And when the last tone faded, the silence that followed was deeper than sound, a silence that lingered as if the Force itself had exhaled in calm satisfaction. 30. The Outer Rim. Missions beyond the bright center of the galaxy lay the Outer Rim, a vast expanse of untamed worlds, where the law was uncertain and suffering often went unseen. To these far places, the Jedi sent their emissaries. They did not go as heroes, but as healers, bringing medicine, counsel, and peace. Some built schools, others mediated between warring tribes. Often, they worked alone, trusting the Force to guide their steps through unknown lands. In every act of kindness, they planted seeds of harmony that would outlive them. And though their deeds rarely filled hollow records or tales, the Force remembered. For every life touched by compassion added its light to the great current, turning even the darkest corners of the galaxy toward dawn. 31. The dimming of light. For thousands of years, the galaxy thrived under the peace the Jedi had sown. But as the centuries passed, even light cast shadows. The Order, once humble and fluid, grew structured and certain. Temples filled with rituals, councils with rules, and many Jedi began to see the galaxy not as it was, but as they wished it to be. They served the Republic with devotion, yet slowly, the heart of service gave way to the weight of duty. In their effort to protect peace, some forgot to feel it. The Force, ever patient, whispered still, but the hum of bureaucracy began to drown its voice. And though the stars still shone upon the temple's towers, a faint stillness crept beneath the light, a silence that felt just a little too heavy to be peace. 32. The Lost 20. Over the long span of the Order's history, there were those who could no longer walk the Jedi path. 20 masters, guided by conviction rather than rebellion, chose to leave the Order behind. They were remembered not as traitors, but as the Lost 20, each departure carved into marble within the temple archives. Among them were philosophers, artists, warriors, all who questioned what the Jedi had become. They sought the living Force beyond the rules, and though they vanished into history, their absence lingered like the echo of an unanswered prayer. Young Jedi would sometimes sit before those statues, tracing the names in quiet wonder, asking what truth might lie between faith and doubt. And somewhere, the Force itself seemed to sigh, as if mourning what could have been and what had been forgotten. 33. Dooku's departure. Count Dooku was among the last to join the Lost. Once a wise and noble Jedi Master, his voice carried deep respect within the Council. Yet as the Republic grew corrupt and warlike, he saw shadows spreading across both Senate and Temple. His disillusionment began as sorrow, but sorrow turned to distance, and distance to anger. He walked away from the Order, seeking purity of purpose. But in his loneliness, the darkness found him. Though his story would become one of tragedy, his leaving marked a truth older than any war, that even the brightest among the Jedi could be lost when compassion is replaced by certainty. And so, beneath the still hum of Coruscant's towers, another fracture formed, silent, unseen, inevitable. 34. The unseen darkness. While the Jedi looked outward, seeking peace among the stars, the true shadow crept unseen beneath their very feet. For 1,000 years, the Sith had vanished, or so the Council believed. In truth, they had not perished, but adapted, trading the fury of open war for the subtlety of patience. They moved like a whisper through politics and commerce, planting seeds of corruption in the heart of the Republic itself. The Jedi, so attuned to conflict, could not sense what hid in plain sight, the quiet hunger for power that grew without form. The Force had grown clouded, its light refracted through deception and pride. And so, beneath the gleaming towers of Coruscant, the dark side stirred, silent as breath, waiting for the perfect moment to awaken. 35. The Phantom Menace. When at last the Sith revealed themselves again, it was not with armies, but with manipulation. A shadow named Darth Sidious rose within the Republic, his mask the face of a politician, his words wrapped in promises of order. Few sensed his true nature, even among the Jedi, whose sight was dimmed by confidence. At the same time, a young boy was discovered on a distant desert world, Anakin Skywalker, born of mystery, radiant with the Force. Some saw him as the chosen one, destined to bring balance to the galaxy. Yet even as the Jedi debated his future, the currents of destiny had already begun to twist. The dark and the light moved closer, their paths crossing in the quiet hum of fate. And from that meeting, the galaxy began its long descent into storm. 36. Prophecies of the Chosen One. Long before Anakin was born, Jedi seers had spoken of a being who would restore balance to the Force. The prophecy was ancient, incomplete, its meaning as fluid as the Force itself. Some believed it spoke of victory over darkness, others of a balance that required both light and shadow. When Anakin appeared, luminous and untamed, many saw in him the promise of renewal. But prophecy is never a path. It is a mirror. And as the boy grew under the Order's watch, each master saw something different reflected in him. Hope, fear, destiny. The Jedi sought clarity, but the Force offered only silence, the calm before the storm. And in that silence, destiny began to move unseen, like a whisper through the stars. 37. The Council's blindness. From their marble spires above Coruscant, the Jedi Council sought to understand the growing tremors in the Force. Yet for all their meditation, they could no longer see clearly. The dark side had veiled their vision, casting fog across even the greatest of masters. They debated endlessly, searching for truth in the silence where once the Force had sung. But arrogance had crept in like shadow at sunset. They had grown too certain of their wisdom, too confident that light could never fade. And so, when the darkness stood before them, smiling through the mask of a chancellor, they did not recognize it. The galaxy still looked peaceful from their high tower, but below, the tides of fate had already turned. And the Force, patient yet mournful, whispered of what was to come. 38. The clone armies rise. On the distant world of Kamino, rain fell in endless rhythm over silver seas. There, beneath lightning-filled skies, an army was being created. Clones born not of family, but of design. The Jedi were told it was built for them, commissioned in their name, long before they ever knew of its existence. Each soldier was identical, disciplined, loyal, and bred for obedience. When war loomed on the horizon, the Jedi accepted the army, uneasy but resolved, believing they could command it for good. But the Force murmured in unease, for this gift carried a hidden price. The Jedi, sworn to peace, now stood at the head of soldiers, and as thunder rolled across Kamino's endless waters, the first drops of a coming storm began to fall. 39. Warriors once more. When the Clone Wars began, the Jedi were thrust into a role they had not sought for generations, that of generals. They led legions into battle, sabers igniting across 1,000 worlds. Their calm became strategy. Their wisdom turned to command. And though they fought with noble hearts, each victory carried the taste of sorrow. The Order had been founded to end war, yet now they sustained it. The Force around them darkened, twisting with the fear and death that echoed across the stars. Some Jedi still tried to teach, to heal, to protect, but many found their peace slipping away in the roar of conflict. The hum of lightsabers no longer soothed, it mourned, and through that endless war, the Force began to weep. 40. The weight of war. As the Clone Wars spread through the stars, the Jedi found themselves fighting battles on worlds they had once protected in peace. Every victory felt heavy, every loss deeper than words. The Force around them trembled with grief, a living field disturbed by suffering on a scale unseen for millennia. For each fallen clone, each wounded civilian, the Jedi felt the ache in their meditations. They tried to remain centered, to remember compassion in the midst of chaos. But the war demanded decisions that blurred the line between light and necessity. The Order, once devoted to listening, now gave commands. They began to wonder if peace could ever return, or if they had already lost it in the noise of blaster fire. And in that doubt, the shadow grew stronger. 41. Masters in battle. Even the greatest masters could not escape the call of war. Yoda, who had once taught stillness, now led soldiers into fire. Mace Windu, calm and resolute, found his wisdom tested by the cruelty of endless strategy. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, ever patient, walked between hope and heartbreak with every campaign. They bore their duty with grace, yet sorrow lingered behind their calm. The Jedi Council still spoke of the Force and balance, but each battle left unseen scars. They had become symbols of command rather than guidance, their sabers raised not in meditation, but in survival. Still, they fought with honor, each strike measured, each choice weighed by conscience. Yet the galaxy no longer saw them as monks of peace, but as warriors, generals, and soldiers of the Republic. And that quiet misperception was the beginning of the end. 42. The Youngling's Fear. Inside the temple, far from the front lines, the youngest of the Jedi could still feel the storm. Their teachers spoke of courage, but even courage could not silence the tension that filled the air. Meditation chambers that once echoed with laughter now felt uncertain. The children practiced their lessons, but whispered questions lingered. Why were their masters gone so long? Why did the Force feel heavier? Some could sense it, the ripples of loss traveling through the galaxy. They clung to hope, to the idea that peace would return soon. In the still nights of Coruscant, they gazed out at the endless stars, waiting for their masters to come home. And in that fragile innocence, the heart of the Jedi Order continued to beat, soft, small, and unbearably pure. 43. The Bond. Between Anakin and Obi-Wan, among the turmoil of the war, one bond shone brighter than any star. The connection between master and apprentice, between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. They were opposites in many ways. One steady as stone, the other a blaze of unrestrained energy. And yet, together, they found balance. They saved worlds side by side, shared laughter amid danger, and carried the same burden of destiny. To Obi-Wan, Anakin was a brother. To Anakin, Obi-Wan was the father he had never known. Through each mission, their trust deepened. But beneath that love, unseen cracks began to form. Fear of loss, pride, and doubt whispered between the moments of triumph. Even the Force seemed to hold its breath, knowing that in their closeness lay both the galaxy's greatest hope and its greatest sorrow. 44. The Clone Wars toll. The war stretched on, endless and consuming. Each victory brought new losses. Each peace was only a pause before another battle. Worlds scarred by conflict called for Jedi aid, and the Order grew weary beneath the weight of constant duty. Meditation became harder. The hum of the Force, once clear and gentle, grew distant behind the noise of command ships and strategy. Many Jedi began to question whether their service still brought balance or only prolonged the suffering. The clones, born for battle, looked to their Jedi leaders with devotion and trust, while the Jedi looked back with compassion and guilt. For though they fought side by side, the war belonged to neither of them. It was a storm created by deception, and with every passing day, the eye of that storm grew closer. 45. Visions of Padme. In the quiet moments between missions, Anakin Skywalker dreamed. He dreamed of his secret wife, Padme Amidala, of her laughter, her courage, her eyes filled with faith in him. But the dreams began to twist. Visions of her dying haunted his sleep, and love, once his greatest strength, became the seed of his fear. He sought guidance, but found only restraint. The Jedi forbade attachment, and so he hid his heart behind silence. Padme's image lingered in every choice he made, every risk he took. The Force tried to warn him that the future was still uncertain, but fear makes even the brightest soul blind. And in the darkness of those dreams, the first spark of tragedy began to glow. 46. The Emperor's Veil. In the shining halls of Coruscant, beneath the banners of peace, a man named Palpatine smiled. To the Republic, he was a kind and patient leader, a guiding hand through chaos. But behind that calm face lay the truth the Jedi could not see. He was Darth Sidious, the long-hidden master of the Sith. He played a perfect symphony of deception, whispering to the Senate, the generals, and even to Anakin Skywalker himself. Every victory of the Republic was his design. Every loss served his rise. The Force had been clouded, veiled by his will, and even the Council's meditation brought no clarity. In their blindness, the Jedi fought to preserve the very war that would undo them. And through it all, the Emperor smiled, for his shadow had already fallen over the galaxy. 47. The Fall of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin's heart became the battlefield the galaxy could not see. Torn between love and loyalty, fear and faith, he sought answers that the Jedi could not give. Palpatine, ever patient, became his confidant, feeding his doubts with careful poison, promising him the power to save the one he loved. The Chosen One's destiny, twisted by fear, began to unravel. When the truth of Sidious was revealed, Anakin faced a choice that would echo through eternity. In that moment of confusion and grief, he chose the darkness, not out of hatred, but out of love turned desperate. And so, Anakin Skywalker was lost, reborn as Darth Vader beneath the shadow of betrayal. The temple that once shone with peace would soon burn with the reflection of his anguish. 48. Order 66. It began with a whisper, a command spoken across the stars. Execute Order 66. In an instant, the clone soldiers turned upon their Jedi commanders. Brothers became betrayers, their minds bound by a control they never knew existed. Temples, outposts, and hidden sanctuaries fell silent, each light extinguished by the storm. Across the galaxy, sabers dimmed one by one. Some Jedi fought, others ran. Many simply closed their eyes, surrendering to the Force. It was not anger that ended the Jedi. It was trust, twisted into tragedy. And when the last echo of battle faded, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, as if mourning the sudden absence of the light that had once guided it home. 49. The Temple Burns night fell over Coruscant, and with it, the Jedi Temple blazed. Flames licked the marble spires where laughter and wisdom once lived. The great halls echoed not with voices of peace, but with the sorrowful hum of lightsabers turned against their keepers. Statues of masters stood in silent witness as smoke curled into the heavens. The archives flickered, holocrons melting, centuries of memory dissolving into ash. Even the Kyber crystals within the temple walls cried out, their resonance shattered by betrayal. From the city below, citizens watched the fire rise, unaware that they were witnessing the end of an age. And yet, amid the destruction, the Force did not vanish. It grieved, it trembled, but like the stars beyond the smoke, it endured. 50. The last of the Jedi. When the flames cooled, the galaxy awoke to silence. The Jedi, once guardians of thousands of worlds, had become whispers, fugitives scattered among the stars. Some hid in deserts or forests, others wandered alone, guided only by instinct and memory. Each carried the same wound, the loss of their order, their purpose, their family. Yet even in exile, they did not surrender to despair. Through meditation, through compassion, they remained connected to the Force that had shaped them. It was said that on quiet nights, the faint hum of a saber could still be heard in forgotten places, a ghostly echo of what once was. The galaxy believed the Jedi extinct, but the Force knew the truth. Light can fade, but it never truly dies. It only waits, patient and eternal, for the next dawn. 51. Yoda's exile. Far from the noise of empire and war, Yoda retreated to the swamp world of Dagobah. There, surrounded by mist and silence, the ancient master sought peace within solitude. He built no temple, wore no title, only meditated, communed, and listened to the Force. In that quiet refuge, he faced his greatest lesson, that failure is not the end of wisdom, but the beginning of understanding. He learned to see the Force beyond victory and defeat, beyond the light and the dark, as life itself. The swamp became his teacher, its rhythm, his meditation, and though the galaxy believed him gone, his spirit became more luminous than ever, a beacon waiting for the one who would bring balance once more. Even in exile, the Force was with him, always. 52. Kenobi's Vigil. On the twin-sunned world of Tatooine, a solitary figure watched the horizon. Obi-Wan Kenobi, once general, once master, had become a hermit, known only as Ben. He lived humbly in the desert silence. His home, a small refuge carved into stone. Each dawn, he watched the same suns rise, their light glinting across the sands where the boy he protected grew up unaware. Luke Skywalker, the child of hope, the son of both light and shadow. Obi-Wan's days were marked not by battles, but by patience, meditation, memory, and quiet purpose. He communed with the Force through the wind, feeling the hum of destiny beyond the dunes. Though exiled, he was never alone. for every whisper of sand carried the same truth, that the Force was waiting to awaken again. 53. The Ghost of the Temple. Even in ruin, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant did not rest. Its grand halls, now repurposed by the Empire, still echoed faintly with the presence of the Force. At night, workers spoke of lights that flickered without cause, of voices like distant song. They said the spirits of fallen Jedi walked those corridors, guarding the wisdom that could never be erased. Deep beneath the structure, sealed chambers held shattered holocrons, their broken hums blending into a low, eternal chord. For the Force does not abandon its sanctuaries. It lingers where peace once lived. And though the Emperor's banners flew high above, the foundations still whispered of serenity, as if the temple itself remembered what it had been. In the galaxy's darkest age, its stones kept the dream of light alive. 54. The Force, unseen. When the Jedi fell, many believed the Force had gone silent, that its will no longer moved among the stars. But the Force was never bound to temples or titles. It flowed still, unseen but alive, in the breath of every creature and the rhythm of every planet. It stirred in acts of kindness, a mother comforting her child, a stranger offering help, a soldier hesitating before pulling the trigger. In these quiet moments, the light endured, small but infinite. The Jedi were gone, yet their teachings lived on in the hearts of those who still listened. For the Force cannot die. It is the galaxy's eternal pulse, flowing quietly through shadow, waiting, always waiting, for the light to return. 55. Leia's spark. Amid the vast machinery of the Empire, a spark of defiance began to glow. Leia Organa, Princess of Alderaan, carried in her heart the same fire that once lit the Jedi Temple. She was not trained in the ways of the Force, yet its rhythm pulsed quietly through her, a legacy of her father's light and her mother's strength. Through diplomacy and rebellion, she fought for peace, speaking with the calm certainty of one guided by something greater. When she stood before the stars, her voice carried the weight of generations. Unaware, she walked the path of the Force with every act of courage, proving that the light could live on even without a lightsaber's glow. And in her eyes, the galaxy saw the promise of hope reborn. 56. Luke's awakening. Far from palaces and fleets, on the quiet sands of Tatooine, another spark waited in silence. Luke Skywalker dreamed beneath twin suns, longing for a life beyond the horizon. He didn't yet know that the Force flowed through his veins. That destiny itself had been watching him since birth. When Obi-Wan found him, the old hermit saw more than a boy. He saw balance waiting to be awakened. Through patience and wonder, Luke began to listen to the Force. In the whisper of desert wind, in the hum of his father's old blade, in the feeling that he was part of something vast and eternal. His journey began not with war, but with trust, a leap into the unknown, carried by faith in the unseen. And thus, the light began to rise once more. 57. Training on Dagobah. In the misty swamps of Dagobah, Luke found Yoda, small, ancient, and full of quiet mischief. Here, there were no temples, no councils, only mud, mist, and the beating heart of the living Force. Luke learned to move stones with thought, to face illusions born from his own fear. But more than that, he learned patience, humility, and stillness. The swamp became his teacher, its silence, his reflection. Each breath, each drop of rain was a lesson in surrender, to let go of control and trust in the current of the Force. When his training ended, Luke did not yet understand everything. but he carried the most important truth. That power means nothing without peace, and the greatest strength is to believe without seeing. 58. Facing the shadow. Every Jedi must face the darkness within, and Luke's trial came not in battle, but in choice. When he confronted Darth Vader, he did not see only an enemy. He saw the reflection of what he could become. In that dark chamber aboard the Death Star, the hum of lightsabers was like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. Father and son, light and shadow, bound by blood and fate. The Emperor's laughter echoed as hatred tempted him, urging him to strike, to end the pain with anger. But Luke remembered the calm lessons of his masters, that to win by violence was to lose to fear. He cast aside his weapon, choosing mercy over power, love over vengeance. And in that moment, the Force itself seemed to breathe again. 59. Anakin's redemption. When Luke refused to kill, something long buried awoke within Darth Vader. Beneath the armor, beneath the years of rage, Anakin Skywalker stirred. The man he once was, the boy who had dreamed of freedom and light. He saw his son suffering and remembered the love he had once lost. And so, in one final act of courage, he turned against the darkness he had served for so long. The Emperor's power burned, but the Force moved through Anakin with clarity and peace. He lifted the tyrant and cast him into the depths, sacrificing himself to save his child and the galaxy. As he lay dying, Luke saw not a monster, but the return of a father. The prophecy was fulfilled not through destruction, but through compassion. Balance, at last, had been restored. 60. The Force reborn. When the Death Star fell silent and the stars shone clear once more, the Force rippled through the galaxy like wind through trees after a long storm. Jedi and Sith had both vanished, but their struggle had given birth to renewal. The Force, once clouded, now flowed freely again, alive in every sunrise, every act of kindness, every moment of stillness. Luke looked to the horizon and felt not loss, but peace. He would carry the wisdom of the past into the unknown future, teaching that balance begins not in power, but in choice. The galaxy rested. The Force exhaled, and in the silence after the storm, light began to bloom once more. 61. The Jedi of Tomorrow. With the Empire fallen and balance momentarily restored, the galaxy began to heal. Worlds once divided by fear opened again to peace, and through the calm, the Force whispered to those who could still hear it. Luke Skywalker, the last Jedi, understood that his duty was not to rebuild what once was, but to reimagine what could be. The Jedi of tomorrow would not live bound by doctrine, but guided by presence and compassion. They would learn from the failures of the past that control is not peace, and detachment is not wisdom. He envisioned an order of seekers, not soldiers, guardians who listened more than they fought. In this quiet dream of renewal, the Force shimmered like morning light on water, promising a gentler beginning. 62. Luke's new temple. On a distant green world bathed in starlight, Luke began the sacred work of rebuilding the Jedi. He raised a new temple from stone and memory, its walls alive with laughter, study, and song. Young students came from across the galaxy, some born with gifts of the Force, others drawn by curiosity and peace. Luke taught them not just to move objects or wield blades, but to feel the pulse of life in every living thing. He spoke often of balance, of the lessons learned through failure and compassion. At night, he walked among the stones, feeling the presence of those who had come before: Yoda, Kenobi, his father redeemed. The temple glowed softly beneath twin moons, a haven of hope in a galaxy learning to breathe again. 63. Ben Solo's burden. Among Luke's students was one who carried both promise and peril. Ben Solo, grandson of Anakin, son of Leia and Han, was powerful, curious, and deeply sensitive to the Force. Luke loved him as a student, almost as family, but within Ben burned a storm he could not quiet. Visions haunted him. Voices from the shadows whispered of power and destiny. The legacy of Skywalker weighed upon his heart, pulling him between pride and fear. Luke tried to guide him gently, but even masters cannot silence every echo of the past. And so, as light grew stronger, a shadow began to form once more, reminding the galaxy that balance is never permanent, only the eternal dance of dark and light. 64. The Rise of the Knights of Ren. From the stillness of Luke's new temple, a fracture began to form. Ben Solo, tormented by visions and haunted by the shadow of his grandfather, found solace in whispers that promised freedom from doubt. He met them in secret. Figures cloaked in ash and twilight, warriors who worshipped neither light nor dark, but power itself. They called themselves the Knights of Ren. Through them, Ben found a reflection of his turmoil, a place where passion was not forbidden, where fear was not shamed. But the freedom they offered was an illusion, a chain made from his own anger. When the temple fell to ruin and flame, Ben cast away his name, becoming Kylo Ren, heir to conflict, lost child of both shadow and starlight. The galaxy trembled, for the Force had stirred once more. 65. Rey's discovery. Across the endless sands of Jakku, a scavenger looked to the stars and dreamed. Her name was Rey, and though she did not yet know it, the Force watched her with gentle patience. She lived alone among ruins of forgotten wars, finding beauty in the quiet, strength in the struggle. Every flight of a starship overhead stirred something within her, a feeling of belonging just beyond sight. When destiny finally crossed her path, it came not as revelation, but as recognition. The saber that had belonged to Luke and Anakin called to her, singing a note she had known all her life. In its hum, she heard the voices of the past, the call of the Force, the echo of generations waiting to be whole again. 66. The saber's legacy. Few objects in the galaxy carried more memory than that single blue blade. Forged by Anakin Skywalker, passed to Luke, and now found by Rey. It was more than a weapon. It was a thread woven through the history of balance itself. Each who wielded it added their story to its song. The hope of Anakin, the sorrow of Vader, the faith of Luke, the awakening of Rey. Its light had illuminated both peace and ruin, and yet it always returned to the hands of those seeking harmony. When Rey ignited it, the air shimmered with the weight of legacy, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to pause, remembering every life that had ever reached toward the light. In its hum, the Force whispered again, "That balance is never lost, only waiting to be found." 67. The island of Ahch-To. Across the farthest reaches of the galaxy, hidden beyond the maps of time, stood Ahch-To, the world where it had all begun. Jagged cliffs rose from an endless sea, their peaks crowned by the ruins of the first Jedi temple. Here, Luke Skywalker sought silence. He came not as master or hero, but as a weary traveler, yearning for understanding. Among ancient stones and fluttering seabirds, he reflected on the failures of the Order and the cycles of light and dark that never ceased. He listened to the crash of the waves, the same rhythm once heard by the Prime Jedi, reminding him that all beginnings and endings are one. Ahch-To became his sanctuary, a place where the Force spoke not in prophecy, but in patience. 68. Luke's final lesson. When Rey found him on that remote island, Luke had turned inward, believing the time of the Jedi had passed. But Rey's determination reignited a spark he thought long gone. Through her eyes, he saw the same hope that had once lived in his own. He taught her that the Force was not a weapon to be wielded, but the breath of life itself, the energy between every living thing. He showed her that even failure could be a teacher, for the Force does not judge, only balances. And when the First Order rose once more, Luke made his final stand, not through violence, but through illusion, facing darkness with the calm of complete surrender. In his last moment, he looked upon twin suns once again and smiled, becoming one with the light he had always served. 69. Rey and the Balance. After Luke's passing, Rey carried both grief and gratitude. She had seen the truth of the Force, that light and dark were not enemies, but reflections of one another. Her power grew, not from anger or fear, but from stillness and compassion. She felt the voices of the past within her, Yoda, Luke, and even Leia, guiding her toward peace. In facing her greatest trial, Rey learned that balance is not the absence of shadow, but the harmony of both sides. When she stood before the rising dawn, her saber ignited in golden light, a new symbol of unity born from everything that came before. And in her heart, the Force whispered like a lullaby, "You are both the light and the dark, and you are whole." 70. The name Skywalker. In the end, names are not about blood, they are about belief. When Rey stood upon the sands of Tatooine, she felt the ghosts of those who had come before. Luke, Leia, Anakin, the Skywalkers, bound not by family, but by faith. Their courage had shaped the galaxy. Their compassion had mended what hatred had torn apart. Rey looked to the twin suns rising, their warmth a reminder that every night ends in light. When she chose to take their name, it was not inheritance, but homage, a vow to carry forward what the Skywalkers truly stood for: hope, balance, and rebirth. In that moment, the Force seemed to sigh in contentment, and the wind across the desert whispered, "The light endures." 71. Beyond light and dark. Through centuries of struggle, the Jedi had sought to define the Force as two halves, light and dark, good and evil. But those who listened deeply enough heard another truth, that the Force was one, infinite, flowing, and whole. The darkness was not its enemy, but its shadow, and the light its reflection. Rey, like the Prime Jedi before her, understood that to deny one was to misunderstand both. She found peace in acceptance, seeing that every being carried both fire and stillness, anger and compassion, and that true harmony came not from denial, but from balance. The Force does not demand perfection. It only asks for awareness, and when that awareness blooms, the galaxy breathes freely once more. 72. Voices of the Past. There are moments when the veil between worlds grows thin, when the living can hear the soft echo of those who came before. To the Jedi, these were not ghosts, but echoes of the Force itself, lingering in love and memory. Luke once heard Obi-Wan's calm guidance. Rey, too, heard the chorus: Yoda's laughter, Anakin's redemption, Leia's grace. Each voice a note in a single, timeless melody. They spoke not in commands, but in comfort, reminders that the Force connects all souls beyond death. In those whispers, the galaxy learned that nothing truly ends. The Jedi were gone, yet never gone. Their wisdom drifted through the stars like a lullaby, guiding dreamers toward the light. 73. The Living Force. The living force is the pulse of existence, the heartbeat of every creature, every breath, every moment. It flows through the trees of Kashyyyk, the coral of Mon Cala, the whisper of wind on Tatooine. To the Jedi, it was not distant or abstract, but intimate, a companion in every instant of life. When Qui-Gon Jinn spoke of it, he taught that one must not lose themselves in visions of the future, but remain in the present, where the Force is most alive. The living Force is the spark in every eye, the warmth of compassion, the stillness that follows understanding. It is creation itself, endlessly renewing. And when a Jedi breathes deeply, they feel it moving through them. Life, eternal and ever kind. 74. The Cosmic Force. Beyond the living force lies something vaster still. The Cosmic Force, an ocean without beginning or end. It is the collective memory of the galaxy, the great current that gathers every soul after their journey ends. When a Jedi becomes one with the Force, they do not vanish. They return to this boundless sea of energy and wisdom. From there, they guide the living, whispering through dreams, through the shimmer of starlight. It is said that when a being dies peacefully, their spirit ripples gently through this great expanse, merging with every star and sound in creation. To sense the cosmic force is to feel eternity, not as distance, but as belonging. The Jedi who understood this, like Yoda and Obi-Wan, learned that death is only another kind of awakening. 75. Balance restored. Through ages of war and peace, rise and fall, the Force has always sought one thing: balance. Not victory for light or dark, but harmony between all that lives. When Anakin chose compassion over hate, when Luke chose mercy over wrath, when Rey chose unity over division, each moment became a thread in the same tapestry. Balance is not an end, but a rhythm, a breath the galaxy takes again and again. Stars are born, and stars fade, but the Force remains, endlessly weaving shadow and light together. When peace returns, the galaxy does not stand still. It simply exhales. And in that calm breath, the Force hums softly, reminding all who listen, everything is as it should be. 76. The Jedi's true purpose. Beneath centuries of ritual and history, the essence of the Jedi was always simple. They were not meant to rule, nor to command, but to listen to the living force that binds all life together. Their power was not in battle, but in understanding. A Jedi's purpose was to bring stillness where there was fear, to offer clarity when the galaxy grew clouded. Even when wars demanded their strength, their truest victories came from compassion, not conquest. The greatest masters taught that peace cannot be imposed. It must be nurtured, quietly, patiently, like a seed beneath the soil. For every act of kindness, no matter how small, was a step toward harmony. And though many forgot this in ages of conflict, the Force never did. It remembers peace as its first language. 77. Temples across the stars. Long before Coruscant's grand spires, the Jedi had sanctuaries scattered across the galaxy. Temples hidden in forests, carved into cliffs, or built upon worlds where the Force sang the loudest. On Ilum, they walked among fields of crystal light. On Jedha, they meditated beneath ancient moons. Some temples were so old that even the Order no longer knew who built them. Yet each one resonated with the same quiet pulse, as though the stones themselves remembered meditation, prayer, and peace. Even after centuries of ruin and war, these places remain sacred, their walls humming faintly with the memory of those who once sat within them. Travelers say that if you listen closely in such ruins, you can still hear the hum of 1,000 sabers at rest, like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. 78. The holocron's whisper. Among the Jedi's most precious creations were the holocrons, crystal repositories that held voices of the past. When touched with the Force, they awakened, glowing softly in the air, projecting images of ancient masters whose words had not been spoken in millennia. Their wisdom was not just knowledge, it was presence. Each holocron spoke differently. Some offered teachings of the code, others told stories of compassion, humility, and loss. They reminded new generations that understanding the Force was a lifelong journey, never complete, always unfolding. And in quiet hours, when a young Jedi listened to the soft voice of a long-departed master, it felt as though time itself bowed in reverence, as though the Force still whispered through every crystal. Learn and remember, peace begins within. 79. Children of the Force. Even after the fall of the temples and the silence of the masters, the Force continued to awaken in new hearts. Children were born across the galaxy with gifts they did not yet understand, to sense danger before it came, to move small things without touching, to feel the emotions of others as if they were their own. These were the children of the Force, gentle reminders that balance cannot be destroyed. Some were found and guided. Others lived quietly, unaware of the light glowing within them. Yet in dreams, they sometimes heard it, the hum of sabers, the whispers of ancient peace, the call to harmony that never fades. And though the Jedi were gone, the Force was already weaving new destinies, waiting for the right moment to bloom again. 80. The light that never dies. The Force, eternal and ever patient, does not extinguish when darkness rises. Even in the Empire's longest night, the light persisted, in love, in mercy, in small acts of kindness. A stranger offering food, a soldier choosing compassion, a child looking at the stars with hope. Each of these moments was a spark. And when joined together, those sparks became constellations, illuminating the galaxy once more. The Jedi were its keepers, but not its source. The light belongs to all living things. It cannot be conquered, only forgotten, and always remembered again. So long as there is life, the Force hums softly beneath it, reminding the galaxy that every ending is only the quiet beginning of another dawn. 81. The code remembered. There is no emotion, there is peace. So begins the ancient code, whispered now like a prayer among the stars. Though the temples are dust and the archives lost, these words endure, pass through memory and meditation. They are not commands, but reflections, gentle reminders to return to stillness when chaos calls. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. Each line breathes with patience, teaching that control is not suppression, but understanding. And at the end, the truth that binds all things, there is no death, there is the Force. For even as worlds fade and empires fall, the energy that connects all life remains. And in that unbroken thread of light, the Jedi code continues to whisper, a lullaby of balance for every soul that listens. 82. Lessons of attachment. Among the deepest lessons the Jedi ever faced was the question of attachment. To love is natural. The Force itself is born of connection. But to cling, to fear loss, that is where the heart begins to tremble. The Jedi taught that love must flow freely, without demand or possession, like the current of the Force itself. Anakin Skywalker's fall had shown what happens when attachment turns to fear. how love, when grasped too tightly, becomes the shadow of control. Yet, through Luke and later Rey, the lesson softened. They learned that love need not be denied, only understood. That compassion, not detachment, was the true balance of the heart. For love guided by peace is not weakness. It is the very essence of the Force made visible. 83. Meditation and stillness. Before battle, before council, before sleep, every Jedi returned to the same place, stillness. In the quiet of meditation, they laid down thought and fear, allowing the Force to flow through them like wind through trees. For some, this meant hours of silence. For others, a single breath of awareness was enough. They sat upon temple floors, in forest clearings, on the decks of starships and the edges of cliffs, listening to the hum beneath all things. Through meditation, they found unity, the realization that every sound, every life, was part of one infinite rhythm. It was in this calm that visions came, not as commands, but as possibilities. The Force never shouted its truth, it whispered it softly, waiting for hearts quiet enough to hear. 84. The art of letting go. To walk the Jedi path was to learn the most difficult art of all, letting go. They released fear, anger, pride, but also joy, victory, and even life itself. Not as denial, but as trust. For everything the Force gives, it will one day reclaim. And to resist that flow is to suffer. Yoda once taught that to train a Jedi is to teach them to rejoice for those who transform into the Force, not to grieve. The Jedi understood that endings are not destruction, but continuation in another form. So they learned to breathe deeply, to surrender to the current, and in doing so, to find peace beyond loss. For when one lets go fully, the Force lifts them gently into eternity. 85. The Force as compassion. Among all the truths the Jedi learned, none shone brighter than this. The Force is compassion. It is not merely power or energy, but empathy given form, the connection that allows one soul to feel another's pain and peace alike. Every act of kindness ripples through the galaxy, just as cruelty darkens its currents. When a Jedi helps a stranger or forgives an enemy, they restore harmony to the living Force. Yoda once said that compassion is the truest expression of strength, for it demands neither victory nor pride. It asks only understanding. And in moments of deepest stillness, when a Jedi opens their heart completely, the Force itself seems to respond. A quiet warmth, a radiant calm, as if the universe is smiling back. 86. The balance within. The Jedi learned that true peace begins not in the galaxy, but within the self. Every being carries both shadow and light, fear and courage, sorrow and love. To deny one is to unbalance the other. Through meditation and humility, the Jedi sought to accept both sides as part of the same whole. Balance was never about perfection, but about presence, the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by what is felt. A Jedi's calm is not emptiness, it is understanding. When one accepts both the darkness that wounds and the light that heals, they no longer struggle against themselves. They flow as the Force flows, peaceful, patient, eternal. And in that stillness, they discover the truth, that harmony does not silence emotion, it simply teaches it to sing. 87. The legacy of teachers. Every Jedi carries the voice of another within them, the gentle echo of a teacher who once guided their path. From master to Padawan, wisdom flowed like water across centuries. Each master taught not to be obeyed, but to be surpassed. For every student must one day see beyond the lessons of their mentor. Qui-Gon taught Obi-Wan courage. Obi-Wan taught Anakin compassion, Anakin taught Luke redemption, and Luke taught Rey faith. The chain never truly ends. It only changes form, each link glowing softly in the light of those who came before. For in teaching others, the Jedi ensured that their wisdom would outlive them, a constellation of souls, forever illuminating the path toward peace. 88. Failure as lesson. In the long history of the Jedi, there were as many mistakes as miracles. Temples fell, masters faltered, and students strayed from the light. But the Force, ever patient, never judged these moments, for even failure was a form of growth. Yoda himself, wise beyond centuries, once said that the greatest teacher, failure is. Through error, the Jedi learned humility. Through loss, they discovered compassion. A broken saber could be reforged. A wounded heart could still shine brighter for its scars. Each misstep was part of the dance, a reminder that the path to balance is not a straight line, but a circle, always returning, always renewing. And so, when the galaxy stumbled into darkness, the Force did not despair. It simply waited for those who would rise again, stronger, softer, and full of understanding. 89. Hope as the Force's song. If the Force could be heard, it would sing, softly, endlessly, through every sunrise and storm. Hope is its melody, carried by those who still believe. Even in the blackest hours of the Empire, that song continued. In Leia's resolve, in Luke's faith, in the quiet courage of every soul who refused to yield to fear. Hope was never loud. It flickered gently, a candle in a void, a whisper reminding the stars that dawn would return. The Jedi listened for that note in all things, in the laughter of children, in the peace of a farmer's rest, in the stillness before battle. They knew that wherever hope lived, the Force was near. For hope is the galaxy's oldest truth. That light, though dimmed, never stops shining. 90. Dreams of the Jedi. When Jedi slept, they did not dream as others did. Their minds wandered through the currents of the Force, touching moments past and yet to come. In dreams, they saw stars being born, heard the whispers of ancient masters, felt the pulse of worlds they would never visit. Some dreams were visions, warnings, prophecies, reflections of the galaxy's heart. Others were simply peace, the feeling of drifting through an ocean of starlight where all things were connected and nothing was ever truly lost. When they awoke, they carried fragments of those dreams, like faint melodies from another life. And in their waking hours, those dreams guided their choices, reminding them that every action, every breath, is part of something larger, something eternal. 91. The Force's endless cycle. In the great stillness of the cosmos, the Force moves like a tide, eternal, patient, ever returning. Worlds rise and worlds fall. Orders flourish and empires fade. But the current beneath never stops. Each life, each death, becomes part of the same endless rhythm. When a Jedi falls, their light joins the stars, and from those stars, new seekers awaken, feeling the same call, hearing the same whisper. There is no final victory, only the harmony that comes from understanding both shadow and light. The Force breathes through it all, from the first sunrise on Ach to the last twilight of Coruscant, and in every breath, the galaxy begins again. 92. Whispers among the stars. Long after the wars had faded into legend, pilots and wanderers still spoke of hearing voices in the quiet of space. Sometimes it was a feeling, a warmth that filled the cockpit just before disaster passed. Sometimes it was a whisper, soft as wind through the hull. Trust the Force. Many dismissed these as stories for lonely travelers, but some knew better. The voices of the Jedi lingered still, woven into the starlight that crosses every corner of the galaxy. They were not ghosts, but guardians, their essence carried forever by the cosmic force. And so, as ships drifted through the dark between suns, those who listened closely swore they could hear the hum of peace guiding them home. 93. The quiet between wars. There are centuries the histories do not mention, years of calm between the storms. During these times, the galaxy learned to rest. Farmers planted, children laughed, and the Force settled like dew across sleeping worlds. No councils ruled, no sabers flared, only the slow healing of all that had been broken. These were the ages when the Force hummed low and steady, neither light nor dark in dominance, but balance. To most, they were unremarkable years, but to the Force, they were sacred. Proof that peace is not a pause between battles, but life in its truest form. And in that silence, the seeds of new wisdom began to grow, preparing the galaxy for the next dawn. 94. The crystals glow. Beneath mountains and temples, hidden in ice and stone, the Kyber crystals continue to hum. Their light is gentle now, no longer forged for battle, but glowing in harmony with the worlds around them. Each one is a living fragment of the Force, listening, breathing, remembering. When the Jedi were gone, the crystals did not mourn. They simply waited, patient as the stars. Travelers who wander near their resting places sometimes hear faint music in the wind, as if the stones themselves are singing. It is said that this is the Force's lullaby, a melody of renewal, reminding the galaxy that light never vanishes. It only finds new forms, new hearts to shine within. 95. Temples in ruin, still sacred. Across countless worlds lie the ruins of Jedi temples, their stones cracked, their halls silent. Yet even in decay, they radiate peace. Vines curl around statues of old masters. Birds nest where Padawans once trained. Nature has reclaimed these places, but the Force still moves through them like a quiet breath. Travelers who stumble upon them often speak of calm, a feeling of being watched over, not by ghosts, but by memory. Each ruin is a monument not to failure, but to the endurance of peace itself. The Jedi may have vanished from the galaxy, but their stillness remains etched in the stones. And when the wind passes through the broken halls, it carries the same truth. The Force remembers. 96. The Force in all things. At the end of all journeys, the Jedi discovered what the Force had whispered all along, that it is everywhere. Not only in temples or training, but in laughter, in sorrow, in the smallest moments of kindness. The Force is the pattern of falling leaves, the glimmer of stars reflected in still water, the breath that fills every living being. To feel it is to understand that nothing stands apart. There is no us and them, only the infinite connection of life continuing. The Jedi called it enlightenment, but perhaps it is simply love, a deep knowing that everything belongs, everything matters, and that peace is not found by seeking, but by remembering what was always there. 97. The Jedi spirit. Even when their temples crumbled and their names faded into legend, the spirit of the Jedi never left the galaxy. It lived in kindness, in courage, in the quiet acts of those who still chose empathy over anger. A Jedi's robes may vanish, their blades may dim, but their essence remains, a current of calm beneath the noise of time. To be a Jedi was never about mastery. It was about mindfulness, about hearing the Force in every heart. When someone stands for truth without hatred, when they forgive where others would strike, the Jedi spirit awakens once more. It moves unseen through generations, gentle as breath, invisible as love. And though centuries pass, the Force still hums their name. 98. Balance eternal. There comes a moment when light and dark stop fighting and simply begin to dance. This is balance, the heartbeat of the Force. It is not stillness without motion, but harmony within motion. Every sunrise and sunset, every victory and loss plays its part in this endless rhythm. The Jedi sought to live within it, to trust that even when shadows grew long, the dawn would always return. Balance is not a final state. It is the breath of existence itself, the galaxy inhaling and exhaling across eternity. When a Jedi truly feels this truth, they no longer fear the end. They simply flow, as the Force flows, knowing that peace is not found beyond the struggle, but within it. 99. The Force beyond time. The Force has no beginning and no end. It is the song that was sung before stars were born, and the silence that will linger after the last light fades. All who have touched it, Jedi, Sith, wanderer, child, become part of its melody. In meditation, a Jedi can feel this truth, that the same energy that moves galaxies also moves their breath. It is eternity folded into a single heartbeat. To feel the Force beyond time is to understand that nothing is ever lost, and every life, no matter how brief, adds its note to the infinite harmony. The galaxy may change, but the Force endures, a promise whispered to every soul that listens. 100. May the Force be with you. And so, our journey ends as it began, in stillness, in wonder, in light. The words of the Jedi echo across generations, simple yet eternal. May the Force be with you. It is both a blessing and a reminder that you are never alone, that the same current that guided the stars also guides your every breath. As you rest now beneath your own sky, feel that quiet energy flowing through you, the unity of all things, the calm between heartbeats. For the Force is not out there in the stars. It lives here within you, gentle, luminous, endless. And as sleep gathers you like the tide, may peace fill your dreams and the Force always be with you. And as our long voyage through the galaxy comes to its gentle end, may your thoughts drift like starlight across the night sky. We have walked through the birth of the Jedi, their rise, their fall, and their quiet return. We have listened to the hum of kyber crystals, to the songs of temples, and the whispers of masters long gone. Through every shadow and sunrise, the Force has carried us, steady, luminous, eternal. Now let the story fade, like the last echo of a lightsaber's hum. Let the Force hold you the way it held the Jedi, safe, still, and full of wonder. You do not need to think anymore. You do not need to reach or seek. The galaxy will spin as it always has, and the light within you will keep glowing softly, even as you close your eyes. May your dreams be filled with twin suns and quiet stars, with peace that flows like water, and with the calm certainty that the Force is always near. For in sleep, as in the galaxy, there is no end, only renewal. If these stories have helped you rest among the stars, remember to like, subscribe, and share which corner of the galaxy you'd like to dream through next. From the sands of Tatooine to the forests of Endor, there will always be another peaceful tale waiting for you. When you're ready to keep dreaming, tap the end screen to drift into your next bedtime journey and fall asleep beneath the hum of distant sabers and ancient stars. Rest well, traveler. The Force will guide your dreams. And wherever you awaken, may the light always find you.